Iran threatening to shoot down 2 U.S. Navy reconnaissance planes. It happened Saturday when a Navy EP-3 and a P-8 near the Strait of Hormuz received 3 radio calls from Iranian air defense units. In one of the calls, an Iranian military person said, "Coalition aircraft, I understand you are doing your mission in international waters, but you are approaching Iranian boundaries. If you do not change your heading, you will be aimed by Iranian missiles. Change your heading immediately." The U.S. pilots knew they were outside the range of Iranian surface-to-air missiles, so they proceeded without incident, according to U.S. military officials. But the Chief of Naval Operations is making clear his commanders have the authority to act against Iran if needed.
There's really nothing that limits the way that they can respond.
The U.S. says provocations by Iran in the air and at sea are growing. 32 incidents so far this year compared to 23 all of last year. Most are conducted by Iran's more militant Revolutionary Guard Corps naval forces.
I think some of this is kids with bravado. Some of this is just Iranians showing how tough they are against this really overwhelmingly massive U.S. naval capability.
Bridge-to-bridge comms were conducted, no response.
The concern always is it could spin out of control.
Appears to be unsafe, unprofessional.
Several Revolutionary Guard Corps small attack boats recently swarmed a Navy ship.
It is irresponsible. It could lead toward violence. The Americans have both shown restraint but also demonstrated that you have to be ready to defend yourself.
The commander of the Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy saying confrontations with the Americans are, quote, sheer lies. But the CNO says the U.S. should think about talking to Iran.
I think it's very important that we eliminate this sort of activity where we can. There's nothing good can come from it.
U.S. Navy officials say tonight they will continue to exercise restraint, but they will be ready to act against Iran if they must.
Typhoon Meranti has struck southern China after sweeping across Taiwan. Described as the fiercest storm in the world this year, it's lost strength since being registered as a super typhoon, but has still wreaked havoc and caused massive disruption. The city of Xiamen has been worst hit. High winds and lashing rain have resulted in flooding and brought down trees, windows in tall buildings shattered. More than 1.6 million homes across Fujian province have experienced power cuts. Water supplies have been disrupted. Travel's been severely affected, with dozens of flights and train services cancelled. Despite the dramatic scenes, there have been no reports of casualties, although one person died earlier in Taiwan.
Hundreds of homes are without power and dozens evacuated after relentless rain brought devastating flooding across southern parts of the country overnight.
Now, the State Emergency Service has taken more than 800 calls. That's just in 24 hours, with the storm cells spread out across 4 states.
Sunrise correspondent Amanda Backman is in Adelaide, Nathan Templeton in Melbourne. Good morning to you both. Amanda, where are the areas of most concerns for South Aussies today?
Good morning, Koshi and Nat. Well, basically we're looking at the lower Onkaparinga region, particularly at this moment, Port Noarlunga and Old Noarlunga, where there is an emergency flood warning. There is also a watch and act message for Brownhill Creek. Now, that is the creek that is here behind me. It is usually a trickle. Far from that today. It's broken its banks in several places. Areas of concerns there are downstream, so we're talking Carolta Park, Netley and North Plympton. Some light rain coming through today, which isn't going to help the situation.
OK, let's go to Nathan. Is the worst over in Victoria?
Well, Nat and Koshi, unfortunately it may not be. The storm's moving to the east, and while it might not bring quite as much rain as it has the past few days, those recent downpours mean the rivers are still swelling and may not have peaked yet. In the west of the state, Hamilton has been hit with significant flooding, while the Great Ocean Road is closed for about a 50-kilometre stretch after a landslide near Lorne. The worries today are more in central Victoria. Maryborough has all but cut off only one road in and out, while Charlton around the Avoca River is bracing for some flooding. At least 7 schools across the state are closed. Some kids might be happy about that, but unfortunately they'll probably have to spend the day helping to clean up.
A rare tropical storm surprised millions in the southeastern United States. Tropical Storm Julia unexpectedly formed last night just off the Florida coast. It pounded areas around Jacksonville with heavy rain and winds. Some areas, in fact, could see up to a half a foot of rain. David Begnaud is in St. Simons Island in Georgia with the conditions that we can expect to see. David, good morning.
Good morning. We've gotten a break from the rain here on St. Simons Island, but it's the wind that's giving a bit of a kick right now. You know, it is rare for a tropical storm to form over land. The National Hurricane Center says it's never happened over the state of Florida until now. Tropical Storm Julia. The slow-moving storm dropped up to a half a foot of rain in parts of Jacksonville, Florida. Wind gusts of up to 40 miles per hour whipped trees and rattled stop signs. The downpour flooded roads and sidewalks. At one point, the mayor of Jacksonville was urging people to stay off the roads. And right now there is a tropical storm warning extending from Fernandina Beach, Florida, near Jacksonville, 45 miles north to where we are here in St. Simons Island, Georgia. People have been told to expect 6 inches of rain, as many as 10 inches in some places. And the real threat from this, we're told, is going to be flash flooding.
An excavating team in Argentina have unearthed a rock weighing over 30 tons. It's thought could be one of the world's largest meteorites. It was unearthed from an area 1,000 kilometers north of Buenos Aires that's littered with craters and is believed to have experienced a powerful shower of rocks from space more than 4,000 years ago. Scientists are to carry out more tests to determine the rock's origins. The same area of Argentina is home to another giant meteorite known as El Chaco, weighing 37 tons. It was discovered in 1969. Astronomers say they were surprised by the latest discovery's size and weight. The readings need to be confirmed. Scientists say an estimated 100 tons of space debris have been excavated from the site so far.
An outbreak at a private school has some Pasco parents on edge tonight. That's tonight's big story because it's linked to a highly contagious bacteria that few people have heard of. We're talking about shigellosis. It comes from the Shigella bacteria.
And right now there are 24 cases of the disease confirmed or under investigation since the school first started looking into this 2 weeks ago. All of the students who are being tested go to Heritage Academy in Zephyr Hills. 10 News reporter Eric Glasser is there live. Eric, this is highly contagious, so how can they stop the spread?
Courtney, the academy is still open. They are holding classes now, working closely with the Pasco Health Department to do what they can to try and control this bacteria. But at this point, several of the parents that we spoke with say they would just as soon that the place shut down for a short period of time, get a thorough cleaning from top to bottom, and then reopen, hoping to avoid more cases of kids getting sick.
Well, I personally think the school should have been shut down.
Jessica Duncan's 12-year-old son is one of more than 20 students at Heritage Academy Day School in Zephyr Hills dealing with an outbreak of shigellosis.
Vomiting, bloody diarrhea, dehydration.
So far, 3 confirmed cases in the school's pre-K, as many as 21 more suspected, affecting various age groups.
You know, you really want to get on it fast.
Health officials say shigellosis is a highly contagious bacterial infection, similar to salmonella, spread through food or water contaminated with feces, even contact with contaminated objects, bathroom faucets, handles, doorknobs, or toys.
Especially in a school setting where, kids maybe don't wash their hands the best, and unfortunately they may touch things and other people come in contact with it and it spreads that way.
The school has now sent 3 letters home with parents, letting them know that they are working with the Department of Health, which has imposed Phase 1 guidelines to help control the outbreak.
To make sure that the school or whoever that institution is, that they're cleaning those high-touch areas.
Heritage Academy says it's following orders, disinfecting toys and play equipment, mandating hand washing before and after meals, as well as bathroom breaks. Students with suspected cases, including Duncan's son, can't go back to school until they've tested negative twice. But what troubles her is that as far as she knows, the source of the outbreak has not yet been pinpointed.
So even if my son does go back, he's going to get it again because it's still going around.
County officials say they don't see any reason to shut down the school or any institution as long as those protocols are being followed. That means anybody who is sick should not come back until they are all clear. And that means that the surfaces inside the building have to be kept spotless because the bacteria can survive for months even before being touched. Courtney?
Eric, you found out that antibiotics do work on shigellosis, but are they really the best treatment for these children?
Well, it can be a treatment, as you said, and it can be effective. But if they are able to fight off that bacteria on their own, doctors would prefer that patients go ahead and do that. Not only does it help the patient in the long run, but it also provides them immunities to help fight off similar bacteria in the future. Reporting live in Zephyr Hills, Eric Glasser, 10 News, WTSP.
We're taking a closer look at shigellosis now that you've seen what Heritage Academy is going through. The CDC says there are about 500,000 cases of shigellosis in the United States every year. That's less than 2 cases in every 1,000 people. Shigella is one of the most contagious and severe forms of bacteria that causes diarrheas. No one is immune to shigellosis, but like most infections, people with weak immune systems are at a higher risk. And of all age groups, yeah, you guessed it, small children are at the highest risk of getting infected. Now, you've probably heard of norovirus as well. So what's the difference between that and Shigella? Well, we did some research. Both illnesses spread easily from person to person and cause similar symptoms. But the biggest difference, Shigella is a bacterial intestinal infection, while norovirus is a gastrointestinal virus. That means, like Eric said, antibiotics are commonly used to treat Shigella, but not the norovirus. But that raises another big question with Shigella. Unfortunately, the bacteria has become resistant to several antibiotics, making treatment less effective.
Well, there's even more fallout in North Carolina from that state's so-called bathroom bill. This time the state is losing its chance to host one of the signature events on the sports calendar. CBS 4 sports anchor Jim Berry joins us now with more. Jim.
Correct, that's right. No March Madness in North Carolina. The NCAA says it won't play postseason basketball there to protest the state's very controversial law.
The NCAA is pulling 7 championship events and 6 sports out of North Carolina. A move it says is a direct result of House Bill 2, a law its opponents say discriminates against the LGBT community.
Fairness and inclusion are right at the heart of what the NCAA does and what universities do. And so for our university presidents, this was the proverbial no-brainer.
The state law requires transgender people to use public bathrooms which match the sex on their birth certificate. It also excludes gender identity and sexual orientation from anti-discrimination protection. North Carolina's lieutenant governor, a Republican, equates the NCAA's decision to extortion.
Our women and girls in the state of North Carolina are not for sale. They're not for sale to Hollywood, to any concert venue, to the NBA or to the NCAA.
In July, the NBA moved the 2017 All-Star Game from Charlotte to New Orleans because of the law. State Democrats fear more fallout.
Having the worst anti-LGBT law in the nation on the books is deadly for the North Carolina economy, for tourism, and for our continued ability to host critical events like NCAA tournament games.
The NCAA says it would decide on future tournaments next year.
Meanwhile, UM and its fellow schools in the Atlantic Coast Conference will have their own meeting on this issue. The ACC basketball tournament and its football title game are scheduled to be played in North Carolina.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Sarah Swistak. Schools in Michigan now have guidelines recommending they allow students to use the bathrooms of the gender they identify with. The State Board of Education passed them by a 6-2 vote this afternoon, ending a months-long debate which was heated at times. Reporter Clayton Cummins tells us what went into that decision.
Following hours of public comment, the State Board of Ed passes guidelines it says give schools common sense policies concerning all students.
We've had a number of school districts throughout the state over the last, especially 3 to 5 years that have really asked us for support.
Of the 9% of students who identify as LGBTQ, 12% say they don't go to school because they feel unsafe. A number the board's president says will change with a welcoming environment.
We're just beginning to understand there are transgender people and transgender children, and they deserve the same rights and dignity and ability to be welcomed and supported.
Among the day's 60-plus speakers was Nicole Ellefson, the parent of a transgender child who's now in school out of state because of bullying fears.
We didn't feel like it was going to be safe for him to be in school in this state. So we've sent him out of state to a different school because there aren't these sorts of protections and because we know very well just how bad things can get.
The board also heard critics saying parents are losing their rights.
To have your child go to a public school and then be told everything that is contrary to how you're growing them up is a direct violation of your parental rights, and what is happening right now is tyranny. It is not democracy.
Following months of debate, members on this board hope this sends a message it's welcoming all.
Transgender soldier Chelsea Manning is ending her 4-day hunger strike after the Army apparently agreed to provide gender reassignment surgery. Manning is serving time at Leavenworth Prison in Kansas for leaking classified information to WikiLeaks. She says that she is relieved by the Army's decision, but sorry that it has taken so long.
A man with a lawn full of Donald Trump signs says his city is threatening to fine him hundreds of dollars a day if he doesn't remove the majority of them. Fox 25's Erica Ritchie is in Haverhill with a story that's new at 10. And Erica, the issue here is the size of those signs.
It is, and the other issue is the fact that it seems that nobody wants them up on his property. You know, last month, Mark, we told you that vandals wanted these signs down. They ripped them right off from this man's front lawn across the street here in Haverhill, and now it appears that the city wants them down too, saying that they violate a city code.
I got a letter Friday afternoon.
It was about these Donald Trump signs on his property. There are at least a dozen of them supporting the Republican presidential nominee, decorating the front of Richard Early's house in Haverhill. They range in size from 1 foot to 4 feet, even a banner. But according to this letter from the city building inspector, collectively they're too big. And because of that, Early's instructions were clear.
Take my signs down.
Included in the letter was a highlighted copy of the city ordinance Early is accused of violating. It says political campaign signs cannot exceed a maximum of 32 square feet for each property. Early has an estimated 200 square feet, and the building inspector enclosed pictures to prove it.
They've been up since January, so now all of a sudden Trump's getting a little momentum, and now I'm out of ordinance.
And that's his biggest frustration. Early lives on a main road, so he's certain city officials have driven by his signs, and we put them on the air last month when his surveillance cameras caught people stealing and vandalizing them. So he wants to know why now he's being told of this violation.
If they came to me in January when I put it up in February and said, I think you're out of ordinance, then we would have probably done something.
Now, if he doesn't do something, he could be fined up to $300 a day. What are you going to do if you get a bill?
We'll fight it. Definitely fight it. The Trump signs are staying up. That's it. Bottom line. They're not coming down.
After 10 months of talking, Washington has agreed a record $38 billion military aid package for Israel. The deal, signed on Wednesday, will allow Israel to upgrade most of its fighter aircraft, improve its ground forces mobility and strengthen its missile defense systems.
This is the single largest pledge of military assistance to any country in U.S. history. It's a reminder of the United States' unshakable commitment to Israel's security.
The drawn-out talks underscored continuing friction between the US and Israeli leaders over the nuclear Iran deal, but to avoid uncertainty with the new administration, Premier Benjamin Netanyahu signed. I'd like to thank President Obama and his administration for this historic deal. I also thank our many, many friends in the American Congress and the American people for their support. Bipartisan support from the United States. The package is seen as vital to Israel's security in an unstable region. However, pro-Palestinian groups claim it rewards Israel despite its continuing settlement program.